Alright, to get started, you need a few mods. You need raster prop monitor, Turbo operating system, or KOS, KOS prop monitor, and I recommend one called KOS for all, which puts cores in all of the pilotable parts. Alright, so we pulled out the trusty F-14 here. In order to use this, the first thing you want to do is go to your core or your cockpit if you have KOS for all installed. Over here, pick the boot file, KOS HUD. Alright, so you're going to want to right-click and go to KOS name tag, change name tag. This guy is already named main, as well as this. They will group together. Be careful about naming multiple different part types, the same exact name. Maybe use main eng, main gear. But it worked here just fine, but your results may vary. It will automatically tag science experiments, bearings, capacitors, science labs, any of the BD Armory control parts. Same with the weapons for BD Armory, science labs, MKS converters, harvesters, ScanSat parts, any science part. So if you have a decoupler or separator or docking port named payload, it will separate everything on one side as your ship, and if it's on the other side, it will treat that as a payload, and the program will not register the parts basically on the opposite side of any separator of any type word payload in its name. Alright, now let's get into what the hell it is. Alright, how to use it. We're going to go into first person. I like this monitor better. It's already loaded. What you're going to do initially is click this button 2 times and bring you to this screen. This screen is going to tell you to click this button twice to reboot the thing. If you're ever running into issues with it not loading or failing for some reason, if you boot loop 4 times, it'll give you some options to help deal with it. But right now we're fine. Click this twice, and the reason you have to do that is because the program loads in before the monitors. So, alright, so it's going to cycle through your monitors here. Right here. I know that I want monitor. If you know the monitor want you to force number, you'll never have to see this screen. Until you know which monitor you want, press select and work on figuring it out. You can also switch cores with this, but I only have one at the moment. You can, they all run independent. You can have many of these as you want with different settings in it. Alright, so we're going to wait for monitor 1 again. If you pull up the KOS window here, then you can cycle with numpad 4 and 6. But I usually don't use that. I'm going to force number 1 and let it load. Right, so it's loading anything. It will automatically trigger lights if they have the same tag as another part. So if you have some ladders that are named ladders, the lights named ladders, the lights will turn on and off with the ladder when it deploys. Which we're actually going to deal with here. Lights main is actually the lights on my main gear, which are off, but I want them on because it's out. So, turn them on. Look at that, they're on. Alright, so you want at least one tag light in your craft, because the lights option is where you get the option to save a backup of your auto settings and load a backup of your auto settings, which can be important. Alright, we'll go on. This is all action groups. It's pretty much what you'd expect, but we can change this. This will, if your auto is turned off, this button will turn it on or off. Auto triggers disabled. Auto triggers set. So we're pre-launched, so they're automatically turned off right now. This will give you a list of all your auto settings. We'll get to that later. So action group 2, if you go down to the second option, you get a hidden option here, and you can adjust your refresh rate. And that's it until you get to action group 10, which has one more set of hidden options, and that is debugging, which you won't really need. But if you do run into errors, logging right here. Log on, verbose, overkill. This is an obscene amount of logging. It does slow down the run, but it will let me know what's wrong if there's a problem. And then we're going to go back to off because we don't want it. It slows it down. You can set the throttle to max right here. Turn your RCS off and on. Alright, we'll go into flight control. We'll get to this guy later, but you can go through and set all your SAS modes. And this is a rudimentary autopilot. We'll get into it. Alright, so here's some example control surface, outer wing. We can extend that. There it goes, it's extended. And we'll retract it. You can go down here and you can set your pitch control, yaw control, roll control. You can set what's enabled here. If you are extended, you can adjust the trim. If you're on pitch control, it will adjust as trim, rudimentary trim. If you are on a different control, it acts more like flaps or spoilers with set. We got 25 degrees, we'll go to 10 degrees. Alright, but we want those retracted. The same thing with RCS, you can turn all of your RCS control off on yaw control, port, starboard, all of it. Alright, we'll go over to engines, engines main. Got our engine status, our mode, we can switch that up here too. After we're main, we can turn our engine off or on. Down, if you go down to the bottom row with the engines, you can set your thrust limit right here. Turn gimbal off, toggle mode, turn the engines off and on. We go over to gear, we can retract. Auto brake is, it automatically turns the brakes on when you spawn the, I usually use space planes here. Because I was tired of them rolling away on the runway. So if you're in gear, you can enable and disable steering. You go down, gear has a bunch more options. Set your spring, friction control, steer. If they're set to auto, it won't let you adjust, but we can click this. Now we can adjust our spring strength. But I want it on auto. So you can adjust all of that from here. If right over here it says set option, you're going to watch this. Sometimes steering angle limiter. Sometimes I put options over here, so you got to watch for that. But they all only work on the lower setting over here. You got to go down to the bottom. So reaction wheels, well, I got turn off and turn on because technical reasons. Experiments, it will run tests. It'll run tests automatically. If it's not deployed, it will deploy it, run it, and put it away. We can transmit. If we have the option to collect all the science on the pod we're on, we can collect it all. It auto tags experiments. Antennas, well, this antenna doesn't have a whole lot of options, but if it's deployable, it'll show up here, and if you have to transmit, I think it'll show up here. Robotics is kind of obvious. We can toggle our robotics. We can see the target angle, current angle, and with robotics, you can go down here. This is one where the options show up. So let's see, we can change our target angle here. There you go. Look at that. I want it forward right now. We can go over here and we can adjust your torque limit, target. It depends on the robotics part, but you can set your options here and adjust them. Have to be on the bottom row. So we'll go back up to the top. Go over to our pilot, BD pilot, BD Army pilot. You can again adjust all the settings down here. You can turn clamping off and on right here, standby. So countermeasures, kind of obvious. We got shaft flares, these auto tag. Radar, again, turn on previous target. You can run your radar here. We'll turn that off. We'll go to weapons. So with the weapons, sometimes you got to turn guard mode off. Go down to the bottom, you can pick your weapon. But if you have guard mode on, it's going to keep setting it to off again. So if that happens, you go up to the top, toggle guard mode. You can change your teams. This is if you use BD Armory. So if your radar, you can, from the bottom row here, you can toggle your radar. Pick the next target. Launch shaft and flare will do both at once. Alright, we're back to lights. Now the bulk of it. How to program automatic settings. I already know I have preset action groups. Action group 6 is going to bring my wings back. Do some stuff with the control surfaces. 7 is going to send it the other way. So we're going to go to set auto. Now we'll start at the top here. Auto mode normal means it will trigger based on your setting. Auto mode wait for other means it will trigger based on these settings, but not until after the item you have set here is triggered, so we could set this to, not until the engines are triggered. Or lock to other means whenever this item is triggered, it will trigger this as well. And none of this matters. We want it on normal. Now, up here, mode visibility, this site turns off some of these modes if you don't want to see. Like if you're never going to use thrust to weight, you change this to skip over and now it won't show up here anymore. Delay is when the auto trigger is triggered, it will delay. You gotta click delay, it will adjust by this number, and you will press up and down to set your delay. And then click out of that. So item here, action group, flight control, control surface, if you change this to skip over, then that particular item will no longer show up in your main HUD. So we're gonna skip over action. Don't need experiments, don't need antenna. Don't need robotics. Don't need pilot. We'll keep countermeasures. Keep radar. Place. Alright, so those will be skipped over now. This guy, don't click this guy. This is to leave and go do other things. Alright, so now, down here, this is what actually I want to do. This guy only has one. This is my modes. We have speed, altitude, altitude over ground level, electric charge. Any resource on the ship you can select here. Throttle, thrust to weight, status, so if your ship's landed, orbiting, so on. And then off, and then if you have the correct sensor, there'll be a few more modes that will show up, and that would be sun exposure, pressure, gravity, and acceleration, depending on which sensors you have available. We want this based on speed. We want 250, so we're going to adjust by 10. We're going to go to 50, then we're going to adjust by 100. So on over 250, I want it to trigger action group 6. And then after the trigger, so we can disable, which will obviously it won't ever check again for that condition. Change directions for gear, so if you go up over 100, it will then wait for you to go down under 100. What we want here is reset up, which means it will detect when I go over 250 and when I go under 250, but it will only trigger when I go over 250. So this guy's on reset up. So auto speed over 250, reset up, enter. Then we're going to go to action group 7 because that puts them forward for me. And we're going to set auto. Same thing, speed. We're going to go 1, 2, but we want it to be under. And we'll get you back to 10. We're going to do under 240. Then this guy is going to be reset down because we only want to trigger when it goes from over to under 240. Enter. Alright, so my wings are set. We're going to go into flight control. Nope, we're going to go to control surfaces. Inner wing, I use those as flaps because a lot of times I use Ferrum Aerospace and they actually work. Set auto. This guy's also going to be speed. He's going to be over 50, but he is going to just change direction so they want to go under 50 the flaps. Pseudo flaps. Okay, so engines. This one's fun. We don't want the engines to turn on and off. We're going to do something. Set auto. Throttle. This is what we want. Throttle. So when the throttle change direction. So and then right here, this is the important part. We can change the action it does. I want it to do is turn the afterburners on. So it's going to toggle mode when the throttle is over 95%, and then wait for it to go to under. Yeah. Gear, this one's pretty simple. Gear, altitude, when altitude is 100, and actually want to do AGL. When an AGL is over 100, and we are direction. Alright, see how she goes. Now I like to go over to flight control, and if you hit this button, change this display here, always display, this will turn white, and it will show up on any page. Is that up over 95%? Some afterburners. Gears going away. $250. There go the wings. Bring that down a little bit. Afterburners off. Drop the speed. There go the wings. And again. And there they go, all automated. Now we'll look at this. This right here is a rudimentary autopilot. We're gonna set everything to current. Go down here. Heading 89, pitch. Alright, so right here is where we go to the next axis here. And this is the amount we adjust by. 16, 15, we're going to go adjust by 5. I want the pitch to be 0. Next axis. You can also, actually, if you press 1 to current, and then it will give you the option 1 to 0, you can zero it out. In a plane, you get more options than just this original page. Go right here, press more. Speed, altitude, vertical speed. So you can set what you want here. So let's set the speed. Set the speed to 328, sure. This right here turns on the individual modes. This switches to the next mode here. So we're going to turn the speed control on. We're going to go to altitude control. Bring that way up. We're going to turn that on. And vertical speed. Yeah, we'll leave it alone. Alright, so let's check more. Pitch limit, minimum speed, angle of attack limit, which I don't think I've actually implemented yet. And then we will go to more one more time, and we are back to the default heading pitch roll. So you can check here, see that mode is on. Pitch on. Then we go back up, turn the whole thing on. It's rudimentary at this point, but and then right here, if you have speed lock, altitude lock on these, will come up and it will let me know that I'm at 153, shooting for 328, currently trying to increase. Same thing with altitude here. We haven't even gone through this. Thrust to weight ratio. If you're in the air, you'll get periapse, apoapse time. Throttle, electric charge remaining, angle of attack, speed, vertical speed, radar altitude, that's all. Obvious. Over here, if you have a node set, it'll tell you your node time. If you have sensors, they'll show up over here. All automated. Although the autopilot could use some work. Very rudimentary at this point. Okay, you can go in here. Let's see. Let's change our head. Alright, so a little more. Speed, let's reduce the speed. Real slow. Let's drop the throttle all the way. I'm gonna put the brakes on to make it slow down a little faster. Oh, it doesn't like it. Fights back. Yep. You know what? Let's go back. Let's go way up. Let's change our altitude. We're going down to 8,000. Let's see. Having the afterburner tied to the throttle makes it worse. Oh, you know what? We almost forgot here, huh? Weapons. It's a weapon. So the weapon manager's on right now. Guard mode. You gotta turn guard mode off here, or it'll keep turning your weapons off. We'll just dump everything. We'll dump it all. Alright, now for an example of what you can do with all this. This has already been set up, so I'm not going to have to press a single button. Just get it started. This one only has one monitor, so it doesn't make you choose, it just picks it. Alright, start. We're going to pop right over here, we're going to list auto, see if I can name it all. Alright, action group, we're going to wait for antennas, let's see. Alright, AG9 cuts the parachutes, throttle on next node. Oh man, this is way too fast for me. You're going to have to read it, pause it. Going to turn on heat shields, couple some fuel tanks, activate chutes, legs, lights, everything. All we have... Oh, it's going. It's already going. It's already going. We got into within 10 seconds of the node. It's already going. It's turned on the throttle. It's faced retrograde. Delayed the engine by 9 seconds. She's firing. Look, those tanks are empty. They're gone. Empty. It's gone. Okay. So, one cool thing with this is it works in time warp. So this is going to inflate, even though we're in time warp right now. And when you go into time warp, your throttle drops. It saves the position of the throttle and it sets it back after time warp is done. At about 200... bearing's gonna go. Bearing deployed. Parachutes are set for 3,000. Drogue chutes. Regular chutes for about 1,100. Cut the drogue chutes at 900. Legs at 500. Blowing experiment will run in 5 seconds. So we got something going on here. Right here. Oh, it set the heading. Under 40 meters per second, drop that. Chutes, cut the others. Fast forward a little bit. Under 500, oh look at that, there goes some legs and some lights, because they're named Lander. So are the names on the legs. So we'll zip her forward to the ground. Gonna try to keep itself upright because of the setting that's set, which is heading lock, which is currently set to straight up. The ramp. I could have put a longer delay on things. This is just an example. You can put as much delay on something as... Alright, so we're gonna fast forward. There we go. There it is. Didn't hit a button. It's all programmed in. Alright, so we have the same settings loading here. But we're at a different place. And there's one thing I probably should have told you already. Retrograde is going to have an on status next node. So if you go into set auto here, under status mode, next node, you are within 10 seconds of the next node on your map. It will start to trigger. And that will be tracked right here. Let's do some skipping ahead here. 10. Throttle. CS. Retrograde. 9-second delay on the main engine. Fired. I'll do some fast forwarding. These here, if it lands in water, they'll automatically inflate. Alright, we've landed. It's not actually going to fly on this planet, I don't think. Well, let's see. What's our thrust to weight? No, it's definitely not going to fly. When you go to the engine here, too, you can see the current fuel flow on some of them. Reduce the throttle. That'll drop. What's our thrust to weight now?